So we're super excited to go ahead and kick off our Trends in Medical Affairs webinar, right? And so we're joined by Dr. Ajit Patil and also Bernadette Daka, who will be kind of running slides for us. So a big thank you to them and a big thank you to you who joined, who took time out of your busy Wednesday to go ahead and join us here today. So with that, Bernadette, let's go to the next slide. So team, here we're really here to talk about both medical affairs and medical info or medical information. And we really wanted to discuss based on our kind of knowledge of the industry and also our from our subject matter experts like Dr. Ajit here, some of the trends and some of the challenges that are out there, in the space and how they're being solved right now using technology. So we'll be going through some quick intros from our side. Then Dr. Ajit will kind of go ahead and walk us through with some detail, giving us an overview of both the medical affairs and medical information space, how they play together. Right. And then I'll be discussing some of the trends and some of the challenges out there being faced by those of us in the industry. And then should we have time, we're going to go ahead and show maybe, a quick demo of how the Cloudbyz solution for medical affairs and medical information is really stepping up to the plate and solving these challenges. We're also going to have at least 5 or 10 minutes for the Q&A portion of this. So please get your questions ready. I know that Bernadette has set up the Zoom call to be able to take your questions. They'll come to her and us as the moderators. So we will kind of enter some questions if they kind of fit the flow during our presentation. And then if not, we'll definitely save some time at the end to kind of go through those. All right. So without further ado, Bernadette, let's kind of go forward. So yeah, I'd like to take some time here and, introduce my esteemed colleague, Dr. Ajit Patil. He's been with us here at Cloudbyz for a couple of years and really brings to the table both the technological expertise that our clients have come to rely on, but also the deep clinical subject matter expertise that makes him so very valuable to our team. So Dr. Ajit, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Dushyant. Thanks for kind introduction. So once again, thanks everyone for finding time to attend today's Lunch and Learn event. My name is Ajit Patil. I'm a PharmD doctor. I have served a tertiary care hospital as part of my housemanship prior joining to Cloudbyz. I work here at Cloudbyz as subject matter expert, imparting industry-specific knowledge in product enhancement and product management activities. So alongside clinical trial space, I've educated myself in Salesforce domain, having 3 certifications of this technology as of now. So that's about me. Dushyant, over to you. Can you quickly give an overview of our company?
Absolutely. Next slide, please. All right, folks. So we are Cloudbyz. I know many of you have definitely heard about us. We've been doing these kind of monthly webinars for a few months here since the start of the new year. But folks, Cloudbyz was started with a very simple mission, and that was to bring innovative end-to-end solutions built on the cloud for the life sciences space, right? And so we've been in the industry since about 2014. We were started by 2 co-founders who had a vision after looking at the clinical trials, operations area and seeing that there were multiple point solutions for every single piece, whether we're talking pre-market, post-market, right? Anything in the HLS and in the clinical trial life cycle, right? We saw sponsors, CROs, and sites using up to between 5 and 10 different systems with different logins to be able to do their job. And after looking at the technological landscape, our co-founders decided that there has to be a better way, that we can centralize all of these various pieces, right, of the clinical trial and the kind of the greater HLS kind of workflow in a single system, right? And that single system should be built on the cloud. And so that's exactly what we've done. Our 25 solutions and sit all on top of the Salesforce cloud, right? And because we're built on top of Salesforce, that means that we can leverage some of the best in class technology, but also the privacy and security regulations that is required of us for those of us in the HLS space. Right. So just a couple more notes here, right? That we have offices currently in Toronto, in Chicago, and in Bangalore, India, right? And all of our solutions are HIPAA, GAMP5, GXP, FDA 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. Next slide, please. All right, folks. So let's get started. So we did want to quickly kind of go through both talking about medical affairs and medical information. So to pass on this really great knowledge to you all, I'd like to bring back Dr. Ajit Patel.
All right, so let's get started. Before we jump on understanding medical information, let's understand what is medical affairs. So medical affairs is general, in general, it is definitely labeled as a key department within the pharmaceutical industry, but let's see what exactly it is. So you can consider medical affairs as a medical information center of a pharmaceutical company. Medical affairs exist to provide scientific and product-related information for any marketed product of that company. As a medical affairs professional, you are spanning all the products that are in post-marketed phase. So they have been approved by FDA. And again, they are now in the market. So any activity that has to do with the drug product after marketing is really what concerns medical affairs. People in the industry have seen its importance more and more, but I think as an established functional area, it is still getting there. So I think really truly grasping what medical affairs means is something that everyone industry-wide is still working on. And again, the importance is very clearly shown, but medical affairs can span a lot of different types of work within their functional area. So let's understand some of the work examples and what type of responsibilities the medical affairs professional may have. First and foremost, the responsibilities of someone in the medical affairs is to manage key thought leaders' relationships. Key thought leaders are also known as KOLs or key opinion leaders. KOLs are physicians who are seen as subject matter experts, and their opinion is highly, highly respected. Now, those doctors, of course, have so much influence on what drug they prescribe to their patients, and because they are KOLs, they are respected within the industries. So people tend to listen to these KOLs and to understand how should they treat the patients and with what drugs, etc. So any pharmaceutical company has a good relation with KOL. That's really beneficial for pharmaceutical company. So, so medical affairs team is really very responsible creating and maintaining these relationships. Once the product is marketed, pharmaceutical companies will have a group of KOLs that they already have a good standing relationship with. So later, their job is to give them a medical information about the drug product in the most unbiased form. And after providing this unbiased information, which will help KOLs to form their own opinions about the product. But overall, the relationship will help business for the pharmaceutical companies. Now, the next key responsibility within medical affairs is working with the data and publishing reports. And they know how to understand, the data from the scientific perspective, and to be able to share that knowledge of that scientific data with whoever may need it, whether it's patient, a healthcare professional, or a KOL. Medical affairs professionals have a thorough understanding of their audience and their needs, and are capable to relay that scientific information in the language that's most appropriate for the audience. So when they sift through the data and have to explain to the patient that they are going to use different languages versus explaining to patient and KOL. Integrated medical affairs team is a partner in improvement of healthcare. They deliver integrated offerings and an evolving value story around the care pathway, which is more focused on actual delivery of improved patient outcomes. Engagement is aligned with stakeholder preferences and their needs. Therefore, it needs to be driven by sharp behavioral segmentations and structured engagement planning. So integrated medical affairs engages through proactive omni-channel engagements, always in line with the local compliance regulations. It is of utmost important that medical affairs protects its non-commercial role and remains the unbiased and objective function in the industry. Only this way they can be trusted partner collaborating with healthcare stakeholders to improve the patient outcomes. The fully integrated medical affairs organization is led and executed by proactive and motivated people with a broad skill sets. They are focused on external partnership to shape the healthcare system and improve the patient outcomes. Additionally, they are focused on people development and external impacts. Medical affairs need to work and collaborate cross-functionally with market access and commercial. Be early involved in the R&D strategy and drive the brand planning. Their performance management is fully integrated across the offerings and across the non-medical functions. They need to leverage the innovative CRM and analytical system to monitor activities, impacts, and analyze complex and connected data sources. With the right propositions, people, organizational designs, and the systems, medical affairs team become a connecting strategical pillar and with unbiased force of the industry, partnering with the external stakeholders as well. Next slide, please. So, as we all know, there is an increasing need in healthcare services due to an aging population, chronic illnesses, or global pandemics. As a result, the industry, the payers, the healthcare providers, and the patients are becoming increasingly disconnected. Discord and divergence on the value are to blame for this rift, which causes unnecessary friction. Medical affairs has a unique position to help healthcare stakeholders find a common ground and bridge the gap between them. It is indeed the industry's fact-based, neutral, and trustworthy face. So as healthcare decision makers are demanding more sophisticated medical and value-based data, it is key that medical affairs engage in evidence-based discussion with payers and other healthcare authorities. In order for medical affairs to make on the new position and lead this transition, there is a need for the robust, innovative, and integrated platform to bring all stakeholders together. Now let's understand from next slide. Let's understand how technology can help medical affairs professionals coordinate with different stakeholders to carry out their day-to-day responsibilities more effectively. The current and future key role of medical affairs is to ensure proper stakeholder training and engagement. Medical affairs will continue to play a crucial role in ensuring HCP are capable, healthcare professionals are capable of optimally treating patients in line with the latest science. This will only become more important in the future, considering the advances in health science and more critical analytical research data. So they need to shift the conversation to value, underpinned by science across the full care pathway. Additionally, the way medical affairs will engage is constantly evolving and engaging through a more personalized platform and portal approach. Keeping our healthcare system sustainable is a collective responsibility. This means the industry will have to shift a partner role in the healthcare. Instead of traditional supplier role, developing a co-creating the substantial product information documents with other healthcare players will deliver superior health outcomes, ultimately benefiting patients and society. So as trusted, unbiased, and objective face of the industry, the medical affairs role will become more important. To successfully implement innovation and solutions that truly benefit patient and industry has to fully understand the healthcare needs. Medical affairs needs to share these insights internally to make sure the industry can act upon these and create real value. So it is therefore crucial shift the insight collection from an individual point of view to collaborative view, or maybe cross-functional. It could be collecting or reporting and acting together. So the digital revolution in influencing how data is being shared and analyzed. Future medical affairs will be able to generate, combine and analyze the higher quantity of more complex data, taking ownership of evidence planning and generation. In the digital age, requires the new capabilities and robust management system for medical affairs. Next slide, please. All right, so let's switch gears and quickly take a look at the important branch of medical affairs space, that is medical information team. So medical information team are responsible for answering incoming inquiries from healthcare providers concerning marketed product, in some cases investigational product as well. So this important team also provides information to patients, caregivers, and other external stakeholders. So medical information core function is to provide consistent and timely responses concerning the safety and risk benefit profile of the company's product. Responses are informative, data-driven, targeted, and fair balanced. So medical information is one of the most outward-facing teams. Although sales team and medical science liaison interacts often with physician face-to-face, the volume of inquiries filtered through the medical information teams and call centers can vary company to company. For this reason, the teams can be considered a backbone of medical affairs department. So medical information teams fulfills the regulatory requirements to provide its services to healthcare providers and other stakeholders. They comply with regulations by providing a central hub of scientific knowledge that curates the information about their company's product. That information often presented in the form of clinical data, may be developed internally or by external sources. In order to be compliant with all the regulatory requirements, they should perform a specific set of activities, such as maintain document of who is making the inquiry, or maybe the inquirer's contact information, as well as the subject or the purpose of the information request. Or maybe provide both written and verbal responses to the incoming queries, provide standard responses document to frequently asked questions to address these inquiries with consistent response, provide the responses to non-standard or unsolicited questions once the medical information team has thoroughly researched the existing data and completed the relevant literature searches, and maintain the current knowledge of the latest medical literature about the company's product in the central repository, and such activities are widely known in the industry. So now that we have a fair idea about medical affairs and medical information, let's understand the latest industry trend from my colleague, Mr. Dushyant Raichur. Dushyant, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ajit, for that great information. All right, folks. So we have three really quick trends to kind of talk about as it relates to our medical affairs and medical info. And Bernadette, I think you might want to hit enter a space. I think some of the graphics are not showing up just yet. Oh, can you actually refresh your screen? I think you might be having some issues there. Okay, can you try resharing? There we go. All right. Apologies for that, folks. That's the perils of live TV, I guess. Thank you so much, Bernadette. All right. So, our first trend when talking about the medical affairs and medical information kind of space here is the trend that we're seeing of unifying data, right, in a single cloud-based system for both the ease of access, but also data security, right? So as my colleague, Dr. Ajit Patil was just talking about, right, there's all kinds of different data that has to be accessed by whether it's your MA or your MI team, right? whether we're talking about commercial data, maybe it's RWE, maybe it's the publication and your information and medical information data, right? But to be able to really run a tight shop when it comes to medical affairs, it's really best if all of this data kind of lives in a single system. We know that out there, in the industry, people are using a combination of emails and kind of distributed shadow IT kind of systems to be able to run these kinds of operations. And while they do get the job done, right, there's no doubt that as we're kind of moving, as the entire space, right, is kind of moving into a virtual first, into a cloud first, or a decentralized paradigm, right? It's increasingly important that technologically, right, kind of sponsors, including pharmaceutical and medical device companies, they stay, at the very forefront, right? And so what we're seeing is that there are a lot of efficiencies to be gained when we're going to unify our data into a single system, right? Whether that is eliminating redundant systems in your IT stack or simply positioning away from your spreadsheets and from your email into a more easily trackable form of communication, right? When it's out there in email, it can be very easily siloed, right? So, I think the goal of many organizations is to kind of bring operations out of that space, right? So, and we can also gain a full 360-degree visibility into the entire operations. From a management perspective, this is incredibly important, right? Management wants to know, for example, how quickly are queries being turned around, right? How many are we getting, right? For what products are we getting the most queries, right? Or whether we're tracking our publications, right? Where are they in the stages of being approved, what information needs to be updated, so on and so forth. Right. And when we have all of this information, all this data in a single system, it allows us to be able to create simplified workflows for all our different users. Right. And so the key, I would say one of the biggest trends that we've seen to overcome some challenges of where we see this everywhere, right? Of kind of decentralized and completely kind of disparate systems. If we can bring everything onto a single cloud-based system, then we can start to leverage a lot of synergies around simplified workflows. Next slide, please, Bernadette. All right, so trend number 2 kind of builds on trend number 1, right? What we're seeing out there is a push to try to automate workflows to try to drive efficiency, right? We know that this is kind of the name of the game across the clinical space, right? Whether we're talking pre-market, post-market, whether we're talking commercial or in the clinical trials, right? It's all about trying to drive efficiency. We know that these days we're kind of working with either it's fewer staff or just a lot of constraints on the capital side of things, right? And so, a lot of companies are trying to pivot to kind of leverage automation to do a couple of different things, right? Not only to gain efficiencies in terms of being able to automate away redundant steps in a workflow, or maybe to keep your team members on track, right? Whether that's automated email notifications or system notifications when things are happening, but it's also to kind of look at all the processes being used by the business and trying to see where things can be kind of reduced to make things leaner, right? As we discussed, one of the key metrics, right, when it comes to perhaps queries is definitely how fast are these being, kind of processed and how fast are we turning them, around, right? And so we have one example of a potential place where automations can play a big role, right? Let's say that a spontaneous query is created against a product that our company has, right? Perhaps there a medical affairs staff member would be notified via email that, hey, there's a new query out there, right? We need to go ahead and kind of clear this, right? And then because this staff member was notified via email, they can click through with a link and they go directly to a system where they can see the query, right? Not only can they see the query, they can easily be able to answer this because, as we discussed in our previous slide, your other information is right there, in the system, whether it's the publication, whether it's the FAQs, whether it's a how-to guide, so on and so forth, right? But that query can be easily and quickly responded to, right? And then as soon as that it is responded to and the query is sent back to the inquirer, the system would perhaps automatically mark this query and say, hey, this query is now completed. And you could see that this information could easily flow into some sort of report or dashboard, right? That said, oh, okay, now this query has been marked completed against this specific drug, right? And if I'm perhaps in management, kind of looking for a 360-degree view of all my operations, I'd be able to see a report being built on top of this. So that's just one example. Again, super simplified. It just has 3 steps of how and where, right, automations are really being used by these companies right now to be able to kind of make their workflow more lean, but also give their users a better user experience. That's super important, right? You don't want your users perhaps to be spending gobs of time doing things that are kind of unproductive. But if we are able to leverage these automations, we're also making the kind of jobs of our MA and our MI staff much easier. Next slide, please. All right, our third and final trend here, again, kind of building on the first two, if you really kind of look at it, and that is the ability to extend a single solution to multiple stakeholders. And so Dr. Ajit was just talking about, there's a great graphic a couple slides back, right, that discussed what an integrated kind of MA system kind of looks like, where our key opinion leaders, our MSLs, our internal MI and MA teams, as well as our patients and our HCPs, are all able to interact together, right? As Dr. Ajit was talking about, the real function of medical affairs and medical information, if we kind of zoom out, right, is to bring together these disparate stakeholders, whether they be payers, whether they be pharma or device or sponsors, right, whether they be healthcare professionals or, whoever, and patients, of course, right? To kind of bring those 4 kind of stakeholders and more together, right? Kind of using, evidence-based information, right? And so if we kind of extend that out, right, then the goal of any medical affairs or medical information system should be the exact same, right? The goal should be that we should be able to extend a single solution across our multiple different stakeholders. And that's exactly what a cloud-based system can give you, right? And that's another reason why we see so many kind of people moving to the cloud. Right. We know that there are various different teams, both internal and external, and it would be great, right, if all of these users had different access points into a single system, right, to kind of cater to all of their different needs, right? And by doing that, right, it's great for the sponsor or the pharma or the device side of things to maintain a single system of truth, right? That's always better than having multiple distributed systems, especially if it's in the cloud. Then you have the ability to track who's changing what information, right? Not only that, when we have a single system and we can expand this access, then we can perform actions across multiple devices, right? We know that oftentimes, right, these various members or these teams would be traveling. They might be using a mobile device. They might be using a tablet. So it's incredibly important that they can all access a single solution to input their information, right? And then as we zoom out, right, it's always important to kind of provide management with these personalized reports to give insights into organization-wide kind of KPIs against our MA and your MI operations. Obviously, that is much easier, right, if we're querying a single source of truth, right? And instead of looking at 3 or 4 different distributed systems to kind of try to get this information around how fast are our queries being turned around, how many queries do we have, how quickly are our documents, our MI information, how quickly is it going through our review process, instead of taking guesses or instead of kind of jiggering together from multiple sources, some sort of KPIs, it is a big driver of value if we can have this in a single system. So that's really the third trend that we're noticing out there in the industry. Next slide, please, Bernadette. All right, so we've talked about some of these trends. We've also kind of tried to fold in some of the challenges, right, that our folks out there in the industry are really facing. So now I'd like to kind of transition in the last 15 or 20 minutes or so that we have together here today to kind of talk about how do we capitalize on these trends in a general sense, right? And then also what Cloudbyz is doing, right, powered by the Salesforce Cloud Platform to be able to deliver, right, on these different trends and how we solve challenges for our players in this space. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Salesforce. I'm sure most of you on this call have experience with Salesforce, whether it's through a Cloudbyz solution or whether it's through kind of biz dev or CRM, right? And so we've been discussing in the trends, I would say the number one trend that we're seeing is the move to the cloud, right? But if we just move to the cloud, I feel like that's really not enough. You really want a platform as a service as what Salesforce offers us, right? And so as you can see in that graphic there, right, any system would have to be built on top of a true platform. And that's what Salesforce really is, right? And so we're able to give, as we discussed, our various different stakeholders, whether they're healthcare professionals, whether they're the medical science liaisons, whether they're the KOLs or the broader commercial team in any kind of device or pharma company, right? All these various groups of users, they should have access to a single system. Right. And the single system should be able to give them the ability to do things like manage their documents, right? You kind of manage their medical content, right? As we'll see in just a second, to be able to manage their queries, as we've been talking about. Of course, any system should be able to give us whole of business KPIs, right? We need to be able to measure, right, how quickly or how efficiently we are doing things, right? To be able to, offer up insights and to be able to ultimately improve our processes and see how we can get better, right? So all of these features have to live on top of a platform. So in this case, we're going to be talking about Salesforce, right? We can leverage things like their process builder and their form builders to be able to kind of build out our forms, whether for queries or document management, and then be able to use those automations that we were talking about, kind of build those out in process builder. Then on top of that, run reports to tell us how our organization is doing, right? So those three components are really quite important. You see there that rightmost tab is mobile enabled. That's extremely important, right? We've kind of seen that out there in the industry as well, whether we're talking about mobile phones or tablets, right? And then as we go kind of deeper and deeper, we can talk about some of the application services, right? Whether it's MFA or 2FA, single sign-on, right? The ability to have users kind of user roles and permissions, built into the system. We talked about how, because we're going to have multiple stakeholders, both internal and external teams, it's very, very important, right? And then as we go deeper, your network services and your infrastructure services, right? Because we're built on Salesforce, right? It's super important to kind of leverage those kind of best-in-class features if we're building any kind of system like this. Next slide, please. Okay, so as discussed, right, obviously Cloudbyz, we're in the eClinical space, right? Whether we're talking about, in the clinical trials, arena, that's pre-market. If we're talking about pharmacovigilance and safety, that's post-market. And definitely the medical affairs and medical information is not only post-market, it's also in the commercial side of things, right? And so our solution, right, as you would have guessed by now, is built 100% on the Salesforce cloud, right? And obviously we kind of leverage the industry best practices, right? And kind of build them out as out-of-the-box components, right? As part of our solution, right? So we have all these various kind of features that would come along with any MA or MI solution, whether we're talking about the Research Explorer to be able to look at various different kind of websites from a single view, right? To get all this information in one place, whether we want to manage our medical content, right? That I'll be talking about, whether those are your FAQs, they could be your how-to guides, they could be your inserts, right? Into our various packaging. It could be the labels, right? As well. Right. We also want to manage our publication. There's always a workflow. There's approvals. There's multiple steps. It may have to get approved by maybe marketing. It may have to get approved by legal, right? And so we can build those kinds of workflows and take our customers out of the email game, out of perhaps other systems, and put it into a single repository. Right. And folks, we've already discussed things like the portal, right? For our multiple stakeholders, oftentimes the HCPs need to be able to have a site, an external site, to be able to enter in their query information or just enter in a question, right? And so we can, enable that in a single system instead of, again, maybe relying on email, right? And then our KPI generation, this is of utmost importance, right? We know the old adage, right? If you're not tracking it, you're not going to be able to improve on it. And so, right, any system needs to be able to track, KPIs to make sure that we're hitting our targets. So these kind of 6 pieces would be part of any MA or MI solution, and they're certainly part of our solution that we've designed, kind of custom built for both the pharma and the device industry. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have one last solution, or excuse me, one last slide here to kind of go through, and this kind of brings everything together, folks. Right, so you're seeing on your screen, we have a few different kind of screens here from our solution, but if you look down to those blue boxes, right, these are the various different pieces of the solution, the different modules that we can, enable, right? Obviously, any system like this would have, accounts and contacts, right? Any kind of cases or queries, right? And then, as we go deeper, any kind of product information, medical information, the ability to manage all your various publications, as we've been talking about, to be able to build out email alerts and notifications, right? To be able to share insights, right? Whether those insights come in the form of reports and dashboards, or just the ability, because you have everything in one system, you're able to see things a little bit more clearly, right? And certainly things like, evidence generation, as well as analysis, as well as product management, right? A very basic piece, but if you have everything in one system, that becomes very important, right? So all of these features, all these components are obviously built on top of the Salesforce platform, right? We can sit on top of Health Cloud, but Health Cloud is not a prerequisite to be able to use any of our solutions. And as you can see up top, these are our various different groups of users, whether we're talking about our medical science liaisons, whether we're talking about our MSO, our clinical nurse educators, our KOLs, or our medical writers. Each of these groups of users, each of these sets of users can access the system, right? Either in a portal-based view, or if they're in an internal-based view, in such a way that they can only see the data that they should have access to. All right, so that kind of brings us to the end of my slides here. And just doing a quick time check, I think we do have enough time left on the clock here to kind of do a really quick, overview of our system. I just want to hit on a couple of key points that we previewed as part of our talk here today. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, okay. Let's try this. I'm going to share my screen, and you just let me know when it pops up, Bernadette.
I can see your
All right,
screen.
can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Fantastic, thank you so much. All right, folks. So what you're looking at here is our medical affairs and medical information solution, right? Obviously built 100% on top of the Salesforce Cloud platform, right? So what you're looking at right here is the home page. I'll come back and quickly talk about dashboards here at the end, but this is kind of what our system looks like, right? Up top here, we have all these various kind of different components, right, that are really applicable in any MA or MI solution. So I'll just be taking a few minutes here today to talk through just a few of these, right, just to give you an idea, right, of what a solution like this should look like. All right, so first and foremost, folks, we talked about the ability, right, to leverage any kind of CRM capabilities to make the process of medical affairs and medical information easier. And that's what we've done here. We have the accounts piece of our solution, which is nothing but your various business entities. But this is the easiest way for us to keep track of who are our various accounts. These could be institutions, as it is in this case. These could be hospitals. It could be clinics. It could be private practice. It just depends, right, on the nature of our customer's business. But it's very easy for us to track information right here, including website, right, including their account number, address, so on and so forth. But also we can track their contacts here as well. So this is extremely important for us, right? Whether we're tracking our KOLs, our key opinion leaders, or our MSLs, or if we're working with various HCPs, right? Whether this could also be, around, market access programs as well. It's very important that we keep track of all our various contacts. So much of medical affairs and medical information is being able to manage all these various stakeholders, and making sure that you're keeping all these hungry mouths fed, so to speak. And so that's what our system is really able to do here from the accounts and the contacts perspective, right? And then any queries, I'll talk about how we enter queries from a portal perspective in just a second. But any queries that get entered into the system, we can roll these up, right? And we can roll these up against the accounts. We can roll these up against our products, so on and so forth. So that's kind of the first very basic piece. Again, this is the CRM piece of this, right? And then, across our system, we can, enable what's known as the activity widget to be able to log things like tasks. We can log calls. We can create events, so on and so forth in our system. Okay. Now, the second piece of this or any systems, what we have deemed the Research Explorer, right? So we talked about the synergies that we can drive if we have a single cloud-based system, and this is one of them, right? Instead of having to have multiple tabs or multiple windows to be able to code to your various sites, right? So let's just scroll down here, whether it's the Infectious Disease Society of America, whether it's the NCBI, right? So all of these various kind of websites, all we've done right here is kind of enable a web page that puts all this information in one kind of single pane of glass for us, and that enables our users to kind of go through and find what they're looking for, right? So our goal is to help the users of our system, whoever they may be, whether they're MSLs or KOLs or the internal MI team, whoever, to be able to kind of leverage a single system to be able to look at all their various data. So that's what the Research Explorer piece of our system is. All right, so moving on, I do want to spend some time and talk about the products piece, right? Products, we all know these are, you can call them, investigational product, drugs, devices, what have you. We've gone with products since it's a nice high level term, right? And product management is, I think, oftentimes an overlooked piece of any medical affairs or medical information system, right? And to be able to leverage what Salesforce does best with this, which is the relational database component on top of a CRM suite of tools, right? So this product page is actually really quite important, and I think really kind of can deliver value for our users. And what I mean by that, folks, is that because we can track a product, let's just take this one. It's called AdinaCore. We can give all sorts of various information here: our generic name, the dosage form, the product ID, right? The therapeutic indication, serial number. All this information can be tracked right here. And then against our product, we have things like our medical content, right? And so because we can track at the product level, this allows me in the system to be able to associate any piece of medical content, or really any piece of content, be it a publication, what have you, we can associate it back up to the product level, right? So we have our various medical content here. You can see that I can see all my medical content against my product, my how-to guide, my review articles, prescribing information, the patient leaflet, right? All of this information lives in my system and is associated back up to my product. And this allows me a very easy user experience, but also I can build reports and dashboards on top of this. I can see what are the stages of my content in terms of the review process per product, right? That's one way I can slice and dice my data. Right, you can access the content folder. I'll be showing you that in just a second, but you can get there right here from our product. And if you just wanted to see the overall documents, all the different PDFs that live in our system, you can see that from this view as well. We did discuss queries as well, right? We have queries. We saw that against our accounts, but we have queries against our various products as well. And so I can just jump into this query right here. Is it advisable to use AdinaCore off-label was the question that came in. You can see that I can track the request type, solicited, unsolicited, public, solicited, public, unsolicited, all the various types that we may be kind of using here. I have both the inquirer name and their email. I know that they're associated to the Mayo Clinic, and I have their phone number here as well. Right, we can enable any kind of virtual call center functionality on top of the system as well. Once I have my query response, that's going to be easy for me to do because I have my Research Explorer, I have my products, and I have my medical content. I can easily, respond to this query. I can give some documents here as well against this query, so that way the person, Melvin, would be able to access this data. And then, I have the audit trail to capture who is doing what and when in my system. Right. So all of this is showing up as a single pane of glass. So let's go back to product, and we have the audit trail functionality here as well. Okay, so let's jump into a little bit more about the medical content. Now, I did want to show what this, you can call this as an EDMS, as an electronic document management system. We just call it a content management system, right? So this is, every time a new product hits our system, is created in our system, right, our solution automatically provisions a brand new set of folders here. So it'll have the product name, and then it'll create, based on a template, these various subfolders, right? So these are the kind of various automations that can be created. We talked about that as well, how we want to eliminate any kind of either redundant steps in our workflow or make our workflows more lean and more efficient. And this is definitely one way to do that. And so the system for me creates this beautiful folder structure, right? And I can just kind of click through. Obviously, this can be customized. We're doing this based on a kind of a POC that we've created for ourselves here. And we have all these various subfolders. And as I click through, I can see all my different information, right? And so if I want to go to my FAQs, I can go to this document right here. Well, not this one. I can go to my how-to guide right here. Here we go. Now, in a single pane, I can see all my Adena Core how-to information. As you can see right here, this is the package leaflet, right? So this would either be a label or would be inside of our box, perhaps. It can see all this information right here. I can download it as a PDF, folks. But not only that, I can see all my various metadata that is stored here. I know my doc version. I know my PDF. I know how many pages, so on and so forth. I know who it was reviewed by. Very importantly, I know perhaps the expiration date, right? It's 5/16/2023 in this case. And we can set up automations in the system that would tell me, let's say 30 days prior to the expiration date, go ahead and send out an email to maybe Alex Paul saying, hey, Alex, your document that you approved last year, the how-to guide for Adena Core is coming up for expiration in 30 days. Please go ahead and update it. And as we get closer and closer, we can do escalation emails to perhaps Alex's supervisor if things aren't moving, right? So we're always aware, right, at the management level, what's going on for my various content. We know how important approvals are in our system, so I can just submit for approval right here. If I want to, please review. Oops. Please review. There we go. Click approve. Right. So I can send this out for my approval history. And we can see here that as soon as I do it in the system, we have an approval request comes through, and then it can be approved or rejected right here. My audit trail captures all of this information. Once I send this for approval, the system will go ahead and lock my fields right here from my metadata. And speaking of our various notifications and emails, as soon as I am the person apparently who has been tagged as part of my approval workflow, we see here that I have a request to go ahead and approve my content. And I can approve, reject, or reassign right here based on my workflow. Right, so all of this information, right, again, happening in a single system, and that's what allows us to build these really nice and robust automations. All right, so a couple kind of last things here, I wanted to share before I get to the reports and dashboards, and then before we can close out with some Q&A, is our publications tracker, right? This is super important. I said that the publications and the medical content, they kind of go hand in hand in a certain way, right? We have here a Kanban view that has been enabled for us with our publications. And this is super important as we're tracking what are the different types of documentation and how are they being tracked in our workflow. So we have a very simple workflow kind of delineated here. It's 5 stages. We go from requested to in progress to in review to completed and then to released, right? So these are the 5 stages of my made up workflow right here. And so this is what I want to kind of talk through really quickly, right? Based on these, all these are my various pieces of content. Here's my FAQ, right? I can capture all of this information. All of this lives right here for me. And then I can have the actual document attached here as well. And as and when I move through my various review, right, or my sign-offs, I can just click this through to the various stages. So when it goes from requested to in progress, the owner of this content will get a notification saying, hey, it's been moved, right? We can set up all these different automations. And this really gives our users and our management that bird's eye view that they're always looking for, right? Hey, where are we with our FAQ? Where are we with our new product page copy? Right? All these questions that our frontline users often get asked in email or over some sort of instant messaging system, we can eliminate that completely. We can give access to management to be able to go in and see exactly where things are in the system. And then if and when they have questions, they can set up comments right here. They can assign tasks out to our owners, Alex Paul in this case, right? So this kind of eliminates kind of badgering people for the status update when you can just go in the system and see it. right? Obviously, we can create reports and dashboards on top of all of this information here as well. All right. So the last piece of this that I wanted to kind of talk through is the portal. We've been talking a lot about our portal here today, and we'll be discussing this information. So this is the portal. Excuse me. So right. So this portal can be enabled to any external users. For most of our use cases, there's going to be the system will be owned by the pharma or the med device company. So they would then extend access via a portal to their HCPs. In some cases, it could be a patient. We've seen that before. It's rare, right? We can kind of give this link out to all of our various users who are external, and they can simply place an inquiry. And this inquiry, as soon as it's created and saved, hits our system. And then we can use that to start a workflow. So if we go here to medical content, we can really make sure that it's granular so that these external users can only see data that they have access to. But you can see here that they have access to this data as well, and that they can see this information. But you could definitely see that maybe this user would only see Adenocore for whatever reason. Maybe they would only see Adenocore as part because that's their product. And if we go back, we can also see the products right here. So this is just one way that we extend access to our solution to our various external stakeholders who may be needing this. All right, and as we jump back home, I'll finish talking about our master dashboard. This is just a very simple design that we've kind of mocked up, right? And this is really where we see a huge value add, right? I can track all my queries. I can track all my publications, all my products, all my publications by their various status. This is extremely important. I can see my products by state. You can see this also being by country for our multinationals. Our queries by product, this is going to be a big one. But I definitely want to know, how come, Adenocore has 4 and, Vinlep suspension has 3, so on and so forth. And these are built, every single data point in our system gets kind of built out, can be built out into this beautiful report that we can then subscribe to, right? We can subscribe to this for our management users who may not want to be logging into the system every single day. We can set this up to say, every Monday at 9 a.m. weekly, please go ahead and send this out. All right. So I'll stop sharing my screen right now. So that was the quick product demo. We have about 8 minutes remaining. So let's go ahead and open the floor up for some questions. Bernadette, I know I saw some come in.
All right, you've got it. So the first one I have is, I struggle managing my KOL's expectations. What recommendations do you have?
That's fantastic. Dr. Ajit, I'll pass that one to you.
Yeah. So the question is, if if they are struggling in managing KOL, they absolutely need a system, an integrated system to capture all the KOL information, and to reach out to KOL whenever KOL has requests regarding your products, right? So they can extend the the system to the KOL, and create a KOL user on that portal. So whenever KOL has any questions, so they can reach out to you directly through that portal, and you can respond to them in real time, and not necessarily sitting on the desktop every time. So you can do it through mobile and tablet devices as well. So so this is one of the way to maintain the KOL in real time.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The next one I have is, my medical information team struggles to organize all of the data that we have coming in. Do you think technology could help us or hurt us?
Can you repeat the question, Bernadette?
My information team struggles to keep all of our data organized. Do you think technology could help us?
Absolutely, it does. So if medical information team is working on some publications to release it to the KOLs or the research team or external stakeholders. So your just now we saw Dushyant has showed us the medical content, and the feature where they can start writing medical publications and store all that data under medical content module, and as and when it is required, they can release it. So this platform is absolutely built for medical information team, and they can do their day-to-day activities effectively and precisely.
Great answer. Next question. You mentioned external stakeholders. How is data protected?
Yep, that's a great question, Bernadette. I think I can take that one. So yeah, so folks, we talked about expanding access to the system to various external stakeholders, and how we would protect that kind of data is by using the granular permissions and groups that we can create in Salesforce, right? And so, as mentioned, right, in the portal, we can say that for our various groups of users, we can define exactly what they see and what they don't see, right? And so that's very easy for us to set up in the system. Additionally, we have an audit trail that is enabled across our system that also allows us to track exactly who is doing what in the system, right? And so we're able to kind of catch those kinds of things kind of before they happen. So absolutely, we know how mission critical data privacy and data integrity are in any sort of clinical system, but especially when we're talking about medical affairs and medical information. And so certainly the system has been designed to allow for granular permissions being set up, as well as the ability for us to go ahead and very closely monitor who is doing what in the system.
Great answer. Another question that just came in is, how do the portals that you've talked about throughout today's presentation work?
Yeah, that's a good question. We did talk about this, but maybe to go over it one more time, right? Basically, folks, you have the internal system, right? That I was showing you with our dashboards, with the products, with the Research Explorer, et cetera. And all we do on top of that is we essentially we create a portal site that is allowed to be accessed by your external users, and they can access pieces of the system. And that's exactly why we call it a portal. You're not accessing everything. You're simply accessing what the admins will kind of delegate out as this is the data that can be accessed from an external portal. And so that's how we create these. This is an out of the box Salesforce functionality, right? And so this is a great way to expand access to different kinds of users in a very cost-effective manner.
Fantastic. Another question we just got in, which I really love, is can the system be integrated into other solutions? And we get this one a lot.
Absolutely, Bernadette. You make a great point. We do get that question a lot. And the answer is always a resounding yes, absolutely. Our system comes with open APIs, and that makes it really easy for us to be able to integrate into any third-party system that also has those open APIs, or that those those APIs can be opened, right? And so that's how the system is built, right? And that makes it very, very simple for us to kind of go ahead and kind of leverage any existing system that our customer might be using today.
Awesome. And then speaking about systems, another question has come in regarding reports. What kind of reports can be created?
Absolutely. And maybe we'll close on that today, as I'm just kind of looking at our time check. So I think we'll have that as our final question. So, as I mentioned, folks, right, any piece of data that gets created in our system can be created as a report or dashboard, right? Every single data point. And these data points extend to, if we're going to integrate data, those data coming in can also be reported on as reports and dashboards. So the simple answer to that question is anything that our customers want can be created, right? And so, as part of any kind of implementation, we would work with our partners to kind of go ahead and set up the system with their KPIs, with their reports and their dashboards that they're looking for. We would also train them as well, right? It's actually quite simple in Salesforce to create these beautiful reports using drag and drop functionality. It's no more complicated than using Excel, right? Which we know many of our users are quite proficient in. And so it's really quite simple. So absolutely any report that you can imagine can be created in the system. And we will help you at Cloudbyz to train up your users to be able to do so.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone so much for attending today's webinar. We will follow up with the unanswered questions that we were not able to get to, and we really appreciate you joining us.
Yep. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.